What's going on, fellas? I wanted to make another video before I go to sleep, and this topic is a thing I wanted to speak on for a while. Is that I've kind of stopped caring about politics nowadays because I realise at the end of the day that's all kind of rigged, you know. Like, they say that voting will change things, and that's kind of the illusion that the elites try to sell. But I know that at the end of the day it doesn't mean much, because like we had an election here in this country recently over a certain topic, and even though most people, if you go out and talk to people, they say that they're sick of the current people in power right now, and but there was something I don't really pay much attention to it, but there was something that we voted on a few months back, but everyone just voted for the same old party again, and even though even though people say they're so dissatisfied about the current situation in this country, people just voted for the same party all over again. So it's like, people are dishonest when they say I'm not satisfied with the current system and all this. People are just, they pretend that they will vote for someone else, but they usually don't, because at the end of the day, people are afraid of change, even if they don't like the way current things are going currently. They still won't actually do anything to change it. And even on the world stage, like that, the two major wars that are going on now with Russia and Ukraine, and Israel and Palestine, I've realised that there's never going to be peace between those countries. You know, like it's terrible what's going on. There's people getting killed for absolutely no reason. There's people getting starved to death. There's people getting sent to wars that they don't even have any interest in fighting. But I've had to realise that I'm powerless to do anything about these situations. Like, it'd be nice if we could have peace between those countries, but at the end of the day, me as an individual can't do anything to stop that. There's always going to be people just having grudges against each other over land or religion or whatever it is, because people are just people, and people are evil, and they'll use any excuse to commit terrible things against each other. And at the end of the day, I can't change anything, and it seems like most people wouldn't care to anyway. Like, because at the end of the day, people only care about themselves. Like, because most people will look at something like that on the news. They'll see people getting blown up and all that, but at the end of the day, they'll just move on with their own life. They'll say, "Oh, that's sad," and they might get momentarily sad for a bit, but at the end of the day, they'll just move on like nothing happened, because at the end of the day, people only care about themselves and what their current struggles are, and they don't have time for anyone else. That's why the world is so effed up now, because people just care about themselves, and they won't listen to anyone else's point of view or anything. Like, just look at how homeless people are treated. Like most people, to them, homeless people are just like vermin to most people, because they'll just walk past them and not even acknowledge their existence. Like, I notice with people, they like to pretend that they like to pretend that there's nothing bad going on in the world, and then they like to pretend that, you know, that they're above everything, like, and then like everything they like to cope that they're happy when most of the time they aren't, and then there's and anytime they're exposed to anything that challenges their worldview, they're just like, oh, it's like they shut down because they're NPCs, and they just can't acknowledge that not everyone has it good in life, and and I think a lot of people now are, um, I see a lot of things online about people giving out about immigration and all this. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of immigration going on nowadays, and a lot of it isn't great for the economy or for social cohesion, or people just coming into certain countries because they can reap the benefits and not have to work a day of their lives or whatever. Well, ordinary peoples who are born in that country don't get the same benefits that they do. But I think at the end of the day, it doesn't affect me really, because I don't have a problem with immigrants, even though there's a lot of them now. I and I know people say that, oh, they're coming in and doing things to, I don't know, attacking people, or just, you know I know that there's a grooming gang problem in the UK that's been going ignored for years. But at the end of the day, I'm only human, and I don't really care about things that don't affect me. You know, like if I can acknowledge that I can go outside, it doesn't feel like I live in my own country anymore because there's so many immigrants around. But at the end of the day, I guess I just don't care, because even if this country was full of the native born population and no one else, I don't think I'd be treated any different than I have been my whole life, you know? Because I've always been that kind of undesired fella who isn't kind of just looked down upon by other people. So I don't think that just having the native born population around would change that, you know? I think a lot of people cope. A lot of people are into that. A lot of people who go to these like rallies and say, there's too many immigrants coming in and all this. I think that a lot of those people cope by saying, oh, if it was all our own native born population here, things would be so much better. But at the end of the day, people are shallow anyway. Most people only care about themselves. So it doesn't matter if it's an immigrant or if it's a native born person. They still have their own, way of treating people. That's it. Whether it doesn't matter, most people are selfish either way. So no matter where they're from or what country they're from, you know. So people coping about, there's so many immigrants coming in, and people coping about, things would be way better if they weren't coming in. I honestly don't think they would be, because even before all this immigration thing started, things weren't going great for me, and they still aren't going great for me even nowadays. In fact, they're probably going better for me nowadays, because now I've kind of realised the reason for why I've been kind of discriminated against and looked down on in life, because because I think people just think, if people think you're ugly, or that you don't fit a certain personality style, they're just not going to care about you. They'll turn on you, and they'll do it no matter where they're from. So this is why I don't really care about politics anymore, because I can't affect anything at the end of the day. I know my vote doesn't matter, and I know that even if I vote for someone who isn't part of the mainstream political establishment, I know that they're going to be stopped anyway, and the elites are going to stop them anyway, and they'll stop them from coming into power. So all people saying things like, oh, Conor McGregor should be president of Ireland and all that, they're just coping really hard, because I see people on Facebook, and social media and like Instagram and all that, they're always complaining about, immigrants coming in, but and they say Conor McGregor should be president or something because he talks about that kind of thing. Like, people who think he should be president are, I don't think they're very smart, because they we all know someone like him doesn't care about ordinary people, losers who never had anything in life, because he's the type of fella that only cares about himself. Even though he can talk all this hullabaloo about, he cares for Ireland and all this, but the people who think he's going to be prime minister someday or president someday, they're just coping hard, like really hard, you know. And at the end of the day, like, because this stuff doesn't really affect me, I don't care at the end of the day, because yeah, it's bad that some immigrants are coming in and doing bad things, but until I see like and another thing that pisses me off about politics is that you can have people who have the same agenda as you or believe the same things as you, but if you deviate in any way from the established party line, they can turn on you in an instant, because if you don't go along with absolutely everything they say, they'll start criticizing you, saying, "Oh, you've been brainwashed by the opposite political party or whatever," and it's just dumb at the end of the day, because you can have people that have 99% similar beliefs and they'll still turn on you. Like, that's just ridiculous. I remember a few of those guys who were protesting some immigrants coming in. I was talking to them, and I started saying things like, even if it was all native-born Irish people here, I still believe that I'd still be treated the same way as I was before. And they were like, "Oh no, you wouldn't be," and then I started challenging them on that, and they were saying, they started calling me a traitor and all this, saying, you can't be saying that. So it's ridiculous. Even if you have the same beliefs as people, they can still turn on you for any reason at all, you know. And that's why politics is just a sham at the end of the day, because if you don't agree with absolutely everything people say, they'll turn on you in a drop of the hat. That's like it. And another thing, even if you support politics that seem beneficial to people, they still won't. There's no reward in doing that. You can support policies that would lift people out of poverty, or you could. I used to support the LGBT people before, and a big like I'd talk to people, and I'd talk to them and say, "Oh, I support your right to be married or whatever," but I realised at the end of the day that they're just the same as anyone else. Like, they don't care about you being a good person and supporting, giving them rights and all that. They don't care about it, because at the end of the day, all they want is, like anyone else, all they want is what they can get out of you. Because at the end of the day, this world is filled with selfish, evil people who only care about themselves. And whether you're straight or from the LGBT community, at the end of the day, people only care about what they can get out of you. And, you know, that's why I'm kind of neutral about every topic now. Like, I guess you could describe me as, like, I'm leaning towards apolitical these days. And, you could describe that, you could say, "Oh, that's just fence sitting." But I think it's the way to be nowadays. Just be apolitical or be neutral on things. because nobody. One thing I've had to realize is that nobody cares what your political stance on anything is, as long as it's not too extreme. People don't care what your stance is on anything. You know, they just don't. They only care if you can get them. If your vote can somehow benefit them in some way, or the thing you say can benefit them, that's all they care about. They don't care about you as a person, only what you can get them. And that's the way it's always been, you know. And even people who voted for Trump and everything, like, thinking he was going to change things. He's not going to change things, because at the end of the day, he's just another part of the establishment, even though he pretends not to be. He's another establishment figure, you know, and he's not really an outsider. Because tell me, what's actually changed since he became president, you know? Not much. If you ask me, nothing much has changed, you know. So don't let anyone say, oh, you know, that being apolitical is a bad thing, because at the end of the day, you as an individual is mostly powerless to change anything in this world. That's one thing I've had to realize. This is why I'm leaning towards never even voting ever again, because I know that, I know that people only care about themselves, and me voting a certain way to change things, and people don't care if you support, like I said about people of a certain community. They don't care if you support them or you support their full rights, because they only care about what they can get out of you, and that's the way it's always been. Because people are selfish, they're vain, and they don't actually care about people, even if they claim to. They are. And this is why I'm leaning towards not voting ever again, because I know it's not going to change anything at the end of the day. The elites control everything that goes on in this world, and I've had to realise that that's the way it's going to be. So yeah, that'll be the end of the video. I'm sorry if you've noticed me like getting cut off or skipping, because I have literally no privacy in my current situation. Like my room, I'm living with roommates at the moment, and they can just, the noise pollution, that even late at night, 12 o'clock at night, they can, you can suddenly start hearing someone screaming and shouting, or and over whatever. I mostly don't pay attention to it, but that can happen. And even when I go outside, there's no privacy there, because there's just people everywhere. I live in a big city, so there's no real privacy anywhere. That's why I'm leaning towards. That's why I'm looking to get a car eventually, so I can actually record the videos on there. Because I've noticed that about people. That's literally the only place that you can actually have privacy nowadays. Because everywhere you go now, it's just people everywhere, noise pollution, everything. The sounds of just chaos everywhere. And there's no time to reflect on anything. Because that's just the way the current world is. And that's the way the elites want it to be. So yeah, I think that's so don't feel bad about being apolitical or being neutral on political topics. Because I'll still comment on things, or I'll still have my opinion on things, political things. Like, I'll still comment on videos or whatever online and social media. But I know that nobody actually cares about what I think, because people are shallow at the end of the day. They don't care about you having integrity or having a belief system, having consistent beliefs about things. Because people are shallow, and they only care about what they can get out of you, or if your beliefs 100% are in line with them. Because it's ridiculous when you have people that have 99% of your same beliefs, but they'll still turn on you over some minor issue or some minor disagreement. That's the way things are nowadays. And it's just so ridiculous. Because it used to be you could have debates and talk with people and disagree about things. But I've noticed with people now that if you do not agree with everything they say, they'll turn on you and they'll say you're brainwashed or you're stupid, you're unintelligent. They'll come out with something like that. And at the end of the day, it's all it is, a difference of opinion. And so it's just ridiculous. But yeah, I think that'll be the end of the video. So, you have a good day, and I'll see you for the next time. Bye bye.